When we think about it, is vaping really better for us than a cigarette? Or just in general, is smoking good for us? Vaping, or known as an electronic cigarette, is a very common tool that is utilized to aid addicts in recovering from their habits. But we all know that in reality, something like this can make the habit far worse. Everybody has seen that one person sitting outside sucking on this and blowing out a flavored cloud of smoke. And that's pretty gross and awful, to be honest. Vaping contains many chemicals, such as nicotine, menthol, formaldehyde, and acetylide. And overall, those combined are terrible for your health. I found that information from Dr. Katak in his source. My goal for this speech is to share the overall dangers of smoking and vaping in general. However, I'm going to dive more deeply into some backstory of vaping and why it's dangerous, the age group that it targets, and the real effects of it on people. Looking back to when devices like this were originally created, they were very good to start with, and they did replace tobacco very well from using this compared to a real cigarette. The original design for this had no nicotine in it whatsoever, which that information was gathered from Dr. Havad. However, somebody decided to introduce certain volatile chemicals such as nickel and lead, diethylene, acrolein, diacetylol, and other harmful ingredients, which the first patent for this originally was 1927, when a man named Joseph Robinson created the first patent ever. But it never went commercialized. They just kept it a small little thing for certain people. Overall, the first commercialization happened in 1965 by a man named Herbert Gilbert. And this is when the prototypes like this eventually started coming out. And all this information coming up, I got from CASAA. Around 1979 is when a man named Phil Ray used all those previous patents to start making the commercialized overall version and start producing mass amounts of vapes. They were very helpful at first, and they did aid and wean people off smoking an actual cigarette. However, around this time is when they started to incorporate nicotine, other harmful chemicals inside of this thing, and overall it made it worse, way worse for your health. The sad thing is that around August of 2006, which is when these were first introduced to the US, which I found that out from CASSA, after a couple of years, it finally went in front of the World Health Organization, and they considered it to be a healthy substitute. But in reality, it does not help recovering addicts at all. The only problem with this is that people believe a lot of the things that they're told on the internet, and if they hear it from a place like the World Health Organization, they're going to believe this is a lot better. A lot of the negative effects of this, it punishes the body physically and mentally. A lot of the physical aspects of that and mental, I'm going to start with the mental, are suicide, depression, asthma. It can really harm your lungs, give you lung cancer. Lung cancer is a physical. Moving into the physical aspects, these can mess with your lungs. They can give you cancer. They can make it hard for your respirations and breathing. Overall, vaping in general, when looking at the specific brand, I got this type of brand from Keller online. Is my source. And this type of brand was very negative because it also increased suicide attempts from people who use these. It was a very much higher rate. Sadly, when it comes to vaping, it's mainly targeted for people around 18 to 24 years old, which is the worst because legally in the US, under the age of 21, you cannot even purchase this. And yet, young adults are still getting their hands on it and utilizing them. The problem is, like I said before, vaping has been known to lead towards cancer, in the lungs, asthma problems, lung problems, other health issues in general. and I researched all this from Dr. Katak as well. Vaping and poor mental health have directly been attributed to one each other in young adults as well. It is also something I got from some lady named Harlow online. When it comes to looking at this, between the ages of 15 and 25 is the main target, it seems, for their advertising, which is very negative. Real quick, while I'm closing out, sadly, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of how it works. We're going to carefully pop this bottom part off. Okay. We're going to take this suction nozzle and push it up against the hard surface on the ground. It pops straight out. Then we're going to take a wedge. I'm using a knife. Be careful if you are as well. And we are going to wedge in between the casing and the actual substance. We're going to stick another wedge into that like this. I'm going to use a little tool driver, switch it in there, pull this one out. Other side, I'm going to go to the top. Nice leverage right there. Be careful. Like I said before. Slowly wean it in there. And when you get it, you should be able to pop the whole thing out like such to get this to pull out. Okay. And pull out the whole mechanism. And this contains all those harmful chemicals, such as nickel. This contains the nicotine, the menthol, the acetylide, the formaldehyde, all those negative chemicals. And I think we can overall agree that smoking something like this, even smoking in general, is a very negative habit to have. And overall, vaping is definitely worse than a cigarette. But the problem is peer pressure is such a big thing in our culture nowadays, and a lot of people don't realize that, so they pick this up and start using it, and they can't get off of it. I think after reviewing a lot of this information, people will definitely lean towards not buying something like this in the future, but people are free to do their own choice.